This is Cosmic News. Timeline is Sunday, the 11th of January 2015. Welcome along, my friends, to another edition of Cosmic News. Coming up in this week's broadcast, the elite's 3 alternatives to surviving Nibiru's flyby of Earth. Plus, a former NASA employee comes forward claiming that she observed in a live feed from the planet Mars spacesuited humans in 1979. Also, more evidence of artifacts on the lunar surface that the establishment is not willing to admit to. Plus, warnings of the return of Planet X. Okay, into this week's news. This first report originates from ZetaTalk.com, the ZetaTalk newsletter, issue 428, Sunday, December the 14th, 2014, titled Alternatives 1, 2, 3. Majestic 12 include the 3 alternatives planned by the elite. These alternatives were to be their means of not only surviving the pole shift, but also sculpting the globe to their liking. Alternative 1 was an underground bunker program on Earth, primarily within the US. Alternative 2 was reducing what the elite considered undesirable, useless eaters via the spread of AIDS and Ebola. Alternative 3 involves sheltering the elite off-world during the pole shift on Mars, the Moon, and the Dark Twin. All 3 alternatives sprang up into action after the 1947 Roswell era, when Majestic 12 learned of the pending pole shift from aliens. ZetaTalk explanation, the 15th of the 7th, 1995. Alternative 3 is suspected as having been implemented, as Alternative 1 and 2 have been. The United States government went underground at Mount Weather and numerous other spots, as has been documented to the satisfaction of even the skeptical reader. This fact is not even being denied by the government anymore. Portions of the government, and we are here speaking of rogue CIA officers, set out to trim and prune the Earth's humanity for their liking. Thus, we have the AIDS and Ebola viruses, as well as various wars and conflicts, which the CIA always seems to be at the center of. Likewise, Alternative 3 was implemented, but as the populace can't get up to the surface of other planets, this cannot be demonstrated to the satisfaction of skeptics. Of course, there are clues such as the tight controls placed over transmissions from probes and the odd malfunction of the Mars probe just as it was about to hit pay dirt. Alternative 1 was evident at Mount Weather, where the underground facilities were completed in 1959. Various underground bunkers have been rumoured to exist, as well as tunnelling connecting these facilities. Underground facilities at the Denver airport head the list. These bunkers remain secret, with only Mount Weather exposed due to an airline crash in 1974. Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center, and this was reported on en.wikipedia.org. Mount Weather Emergency Operating Center, the site was brought into the public eye by the Washington Post when the government facility was mentioned while reporting on the December the 1st, 1974 crash into Mount Weather of a TWA Flight 514, a Boeing 727 jetliner. The facility is a major relocation site from the highest level of civilian and military officials in case of national disaster, playing a major role in U.S. continuity of government. The underground facility within Mount Weather, designated Area B, was completed in 1959. The underground compound contains 600,000 square feet, Jesse Ventura and Secret Ozarks Underground Highways, December the 5th, 2012. Alternative 2 was implemented by the CIA, who extracted the AIDS and Ebola viruses from the wildlife in Africa and set about spreading this among those they considered the world's undesirables. Not surprisingly, pandemics started with both these pathogens in Africa around 1975 to 1980. Alternative 3, being off-world and highly secretive, does not have a track record on Earth. Both this recently changed due to the elite's desire to avoid the sliding crust of the Earth during the coming pole shift. Interest in an escape to Mars has reached a fever pitch. The recent rendezvous with the Comet 67P is a case in point. Now we have the possibility of humans on Mars in 1979. In the news, yes, the Apollo flights went to the moon around that time, and yes, the Viking landers went to Mars around that time. Perders eaters, these did not establish colonies. Alternative 3 did. And now confirmation from a NASA worker claims there was a secret manned mission to Mars in 1979, and this was posted on November the 27th, 2014, and was reported by uk.news.yahoo.com by Rob Waugh. Conspiracy theories have gone wild over a confession from a woman who claims to be a former NASA employee that she saw human beings on Mars in 1979. The woman, called Jackie, called into an American radio station, Coast to Coast AM, with the claim, which reignited gossip over a secret space program kept from the general public. Jackie claims to have seen spacesuited humans via a live video feed from Mars, but that the information was covered up by NASA bosses. Jackie claimed to have been part of a downstairs team working on downlink telemetry from the Viking lander, the first vehicle to send back images from the surface of Mars. I wonder if you could solve a 27-year-old mystery for me, she asked the presenter. That old Viking rover was running around. Then they saw two men in space suits, not the bulky suits we normally used, but they looked protective. They came over the horizon, walking to the Viking explorer. Jackie claims that she and 6 others witnessed the 2 humans walking on the surface and rushed upstairs to the main NASA offices, only to have the door closed in their faces. We ran upstairs, but they locked the door and taped paper over the door so we couldn't see. My question is, were they our guys? Sesame Street puppets, countdown to NASA launch. Viking 1 and 2 lander in 1975 and 1976 and sent back the first data about the Martian surface, including a distinct lack of extraterrestrial life. NASA says, although no traces of life were found, Viking found all elements essential to life on Earth: carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus were present on Mars. This following report also originates from ZetaTalk.com, the Zeta Talk newsletter, issue 414, Sunday, September the 7th, 2014, titled Moon Man. As is known, there are many artifacts on the moon that mankind's establishment on Earth is not willing to admit. The cover-up over the alien presence is what caused the Apollo missions to be cancelled, as the startled astronauts could not be trusted to keep their mouths shut. Zeta Talk description, the 15th of the 4th, 1996. The world watched in rapt attention during the first Apollo moon landing, a first for mankind. The comments made by the astonished astronauts, who noticed signs that they were not the first visitors to the moon, have generated all manner of speculation. What did they see? From the Earth, the surface of the moon looks placid, unwashed by water, and without an atmosphere. Nothing moves on the pockmarked surface. Up close, however, one would discover dust-covered litter and tracks left by vehicles, unmistakable signs that mankind was not the first. Machinery parts, collapsed structures, tie lines, and even a wheel or two here and there, covered by space dust that never washed away. These items look no different from Earth than the dust-covered rocks and craters. Per the Zetas, there are three sources for the artifacts found on the moon. Past genetic engineering projects that use the moon as a lab, surface-to-self aliens on the dark side of the moon who are forced by their masters to remain in third density during their mission on Earth, and the Anunnaki who use the moon as an outpost to boost communications between the Earth and Mars. Zeta Talk explanation, the 15th of the 12th, 1995. Currently, it is a home for those in the service to self who reside there in third density. However, their home is not what has humans talking, as they are placed on what is called the dark side of the moon, never visible from Earth. During the era when the humanoid visitors from Planet X were running mining operations on the Earth, primarily for gold, they used the moon as a communication outpost, as it was free of cloud cover and allowed for a more precise aim through space. However, earlier still, the moon was used as an outpost by a group conducting genetic engineering operations on Earth. To view the full transcript, go to my website, endtimes23.com, where I've posted the link. There's a live link to my website near the end of this video. And finally, an engineer from Sky, confirmation the sun is in the wrong location. The other week, I had more confirmation that the sun is in the wrong location in the sky. This confirmation came from a Sky satellite engineer. To protect his identity, I will call him Mr. X. Here's what he told me, and I quote, "Hi Philip, I just wanted to let you know that I have some information that you might like. As an engineer for Sky 10 years, sometimes we get difficulty install amongst trees. For the past 10 years, I have aimed the satellite dish where the sun was at 10 AM GMT and 10 AM BST. Recently, I had noticed that something was different, but it was one of those that I couldn't quite grasp what was wrong. In the last week, I have realized what it is that's wrong. The sun is in the wrong place. I have repeated my experiments, and as I say, for the last 10 years, I aim a satellite dish at the sun at 10 AM, and that's where the Sky satellites are. Not anymore. It's about 8:30 AM now. Regardless of whether or not people want to believe, the signs are there, and they are becoming more and more obvious. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you on the other side." Okay, my friends, you're all invited to join this channel by subscribing to End Times 23, which is a totally free subscription service. You're also invited to add me as a friend on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. If you'd like to drop me a line on my blog, by all means do so, or if you'd like to join one of my circles in Google+, the links are under this video. All this week's news links can be found on my website, endtimes23.com. There's a live link near the end of this video. Well, that's your lot for this week, my friends. I do hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be back with you in a week's time. So until then, this is your informer signing off, friends. I'll see you on the flip side. humans in 1979. Also, more evidence of artifacts on the lunar surface that the establishment is not willing to admit to. Plus, warnings of the return of Planet X. Okay, into this week's news. This first report originates from ZetaTalk.com, the ZetaTalk newsletter, issue 428. Similarly, within the US, Alternative 2 was reducing what the elite considered undesirable, useless eaters via the spread of AIDS and Ebola. Alternative 3 involves sheltering the elite off-world during the pole shift on Mars, the Moon, and the Dark Twin. All three alternatives sprang up into action after the 19... This Sunday, December the 14th, 2014, titled Alternatives 1, 2, 3. Majestic 12 include the three alternatives planned by the elite. These alternatives were to be their means of not only surviving the pole shift, but also sculpting the globe to their liking. Alternative 1 was an underground bunker program on Earth. Is Cosmic News. Timeline is Sunday, the 11th of January, 2015. Welcome along, my friends, to another edition of Cosmic News. Coming up in this week's broadcast, the elite's three alternatives to surviving Nibiru's flyby of Earth. Plus, a former NASA employee comes forward claiming that she observed in a live feed from the planet Mars spacesuit